far, far away from the customers. And so what happens is they tend to think that what they're working on is the most important thing. They tend to project on the rest of the organization and diminish the importance of marketing and leave that to, as something that's tactical. So, and as a result, no strategy evolves. It just becomes scattershot. And I think that's the state of marketing in most companies, is scattershot and unmeasured. Why do we have to do this? I don't even know if I'm getting any return on it at all. So, I'm on page 4, and we're going to take a look at strategic marketing, Introduction to Strategic Marketing. So there are 4 critical success factors, and I think there's good news, and I think there's bad news. I think that the good news is that this is all doable. It's really doable. It's cost effective. The bad news is it takes time, effort, and a lot of hard work. But if you do this, you'll be in the upper tier of companies, okay? And the thing I want to let you know, too, particularly since we have some tech guys in the room, is that what we're going to talk about today applies to both online and offline marketing equally. Because remember, this is a football. This is putting your socks on right before you can slam dunk, right? Before you can get to the fancy stuff. So it applies in any channel of marketing. So what we'll talk about our brand promise, which I think is potentially the most important business concept I've ever heard of, I've ever been exposed to, is the brand promise. And this isn't brand advertising. This is what permeates your organization. It's why you're in business and how you want your customers to feel. Then there's marketing analytics and automation. And this is something that I have a lot of expertise in. And it really can be, if brand promise is the heart and soul of your company, marketing analytics and automation can be the brains behind what you do. We'll have a case study on that. And of course, the best way to build your business is through referrals. And referrals aren't something that just happens. You can make referrals happen. Not like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, right? But you can put systems in place that'll generate referrals, and that's going to be a big part of our discussion. And then we talked about leadership. Without good marketing leadership, both the leadership of people and expertise in marketing, and I'm not talking just about what prospects or what customers respond to, but leadership in terms of like a big project. How do I create a calendar? How do I get the right IT systems in place that are going to support my marketing? How do I get the right contact management system in place? How often do I contact people? Who contacts them? How do I train people to contact them? Right? So leadership is involved in all aspects of this. So let's, any questions so far? You guys good? How's the temperature in the room? Cold? So let's go through briefly what a brand promise is, right? It's something, I'm on the bottom of page 4, you want to evoke emotion from your customer or your client. If it's just a transaction, if you're just a transaction to them, neutral, they have no sense of alignment with you, no sense of why should I do business with you? Why should I do business with your healthcare clinic and not another clinic? Right? So there's got to be some experience that they have, some emotional attachment. Even with the law, I say even with the law firm, sorry.
That's what we're working on.
That's what you're working on, right? I remember shooting baskets in driveway with my dad when I was probably 17 years old or so. So we're shooting, and a topic gets to be, what does Scott want to be when he grows up? And my dad said, son, I got 3 things for you not to be. Don't be an insurance agent. Don't be a lawyer. And don't be a banker. And I ended up being a banker. So, anyway, I could still be a lawyer. Yeah, there's a budding career in that, right? So we want to evoke emotion, and we want everybody in your organization to be able to feel and execute this brand promise. Then we've got, in marketing analytics and automation, they go together with your brand promise and your referral strategy. So if I've got a database, for example, and I understand who my best customers are, who's most profitable, who buys what product, but I don't have a strong emotional connection with my clients, then it doesn't really, I'm not going to be a world-class company. And if I don't use my marketing analytics and automation to track my referrals, know where my best referral sources are, who's giving them to me, what the value is of those referrals, I'm going to lose that data. It's just going to fall through the cracks. And so this is the brain, so to speak, of the organization. A referral strategy, we're going to talk about what I call organic and systematic ways to develop referrals. Organic meaning the way you do business just naturally, and systematic where you build systems to get referrals on purpose. And so regarding leadership, in each category that we talk about, leadership is going to be a factor. So it's going to be interlaced in each topic that we speak about. So let's go to page 6 and talk about brand promise. And under number 1 there, basically 1 through 3, I would say that we talked about we want your customers to experience a certain emotion from doing business with you, a really good emotion, creating a good customer experience. That's got to be orchestrated, and that's got to be on purpose. So, who's got a good story of a company that you do business with that evokes good emotion? Who's really positive about a company that you do business with? And it can be big, small, it can be an individual.
I can tell you from
Go ahead.
watching Subaru commercials.
Yes.
We have an 18-month-old son, and we recently bought a new car, but the Subaru commercials had my wife seriously wanting a Subaru because it's all about the family and keeping your kids safe and growing up together in the Subaru car. And she's like, well, maybe we should look at Subarus. This looks really cool. And so I think it evoked the emotion of family first.
Okay.
Safety, that kind of thing.
Perfect. So the Subaru commercials evoke family first, safety, and so
Part of your family. All that.
so that's easy to say, right? It's easy to put that message out there. Now what does Subaru have to do? After they sell you the car, for example, what do they have to do?
They have to deliver.
They've got to deliver on it, right? And how do they deliver on it?
They have a good product.
Good product. So the service person, when you take your Subaru in for maintenance, that's got to be, that person has to convey that message, right? That same brand promise that was made in the commercial, now it's the moment of truth, and that person has to deliver on that, right? And anytime you deal with Subaru, parts, whatever, they've got to be delivering on that, okay? That's part of the leadership structure. So this is the foundation for all your systems, your operations, your finance, your human resources, your customer service. Brand promise is real. And it can sound like kind of a fluffy thing. I'm not a very fluffy guy. But it can sound like a fluffy Why do I need to have this? I just need to sell stuff kind of thing. But when your employees start behaving toward customers with the brand promise in mind, and when they do that consistently, that's when you've succeeded. We had a preschool, my wife and I did, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but our employees lived our brand promise, and it saved us from financial ruin on more than one occasion. So we've got boxes of Kleenex, which we'll pass around when I tell that story. Some of you might have night sweats tonight when we discuss that. But your brand promise for your employees, so it affects everybody, right? It affects your customers and your employees. It makes your place of business more than a paycheck to them. More than just a place to go. 70% of the American workforce can't stand their jobs. And so if you can create a brand promise and deliver on it to both your customers and your employees, you've created a different place to work. You've created something where your employees want to show up every day and take pride in what they do. Everybody wants to have meaning in their work. There are very few people that just want to show up and get a check. At our inner core, we want to have meaning and purpose behind what we do. And you can't get there, I don't believe, unless you have a strong brand promise. So what I'm getting at is under 3 is it brings your organization together, all different aspects of your organization, to a focal point on the customer. And what kind of experience you want that customer to have, what kind of emotions, what kind of problems you want to solve for that customer. And the bigger the organization, the more difficult it becomes to keep everybody aligned on that brand promise. Because communication becomes tougher. And then, if the organization is big enough, so I ran a department at a really big bank, then the internal departments have their own brand promises because my customers are all the other employees in the bank, right? So this can apply to, to an IT department. Probably needs to have their own brand promise in terms of how they're going to deliver to their internal customers. You guys need to understand how you're going to deliver to the different people in the church from a tech standpoint, graphic standpoint, etc. So I think that's a real competitive advantage for you if you have a great brand promise, because you're going to be able to integrate, you're going to be able to stand above your competition. Most of these businesses out here aren't thinking about what you're learning how to think about and apply. So at the bottom of page 6, something really interesting. I love it when research studies come out that prove my point. It's always great. It doesn't happen all that often, but in this case it did. And Gallup Research Company, you guys heard of them? Yeah. Gallup Research, they do some wonderful stuff. They, every couple years for the last few decades, they've published a report, which I'll reference later, called the Gallup Study on the American Workforce. It's phenomenal. And this year they came out with something called the Gallup Study on the Consumer. And it's super, super interesting. The point that I liked, for the sake of this presentation, is that they said aligning customer engagement, we'll talk about what customer engagement is, but aligning customer engagement with brand promise is the definitive predictor of business growth. Aligning customer engagement with brand promise. And then they go into talk about customer engagement.